All right. Howdy, boys and girls, ladies and gents. It's Savage Bruski with
Paddy's Parlor.
and
And War God Wargaming.
and we are back for another episode of the Savage Bruski podcast. As we mentioned last week, we wanted to discuss what makes a nerd. What are the pillars of nerdiness, geekiness, what have you? And we've had a couple days of caffeine and note taking and brain smashing and all kinds of things to get into that. So we are literally going to launch right into a discussion of what makes a nerd, what makes a geeky geek, what are the pillars of nerdiness.
The Pillars.
So I think the way we're going to roll and kind of as we plan this out a little bit. So Patty, are you good going first?
I think so. I put some feelers out on Twitter to ask people more knowledgeable than me what they think it is. And a lot of the same stuff kept on popping up, stuff like imagination, knowledge. Um, let's see. So like we have Cinemander on Twitter says that the traits are creativity, depth, focus, clarity, dedication, and communication. I think those are solid. I got stuff like knowledge and intelligence is something that is a constant factor. So I think that those are things that we could put in there.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I was saying was I like to put it in like one of those kind of like JRPG statograms where you could make like a pentagon and you put those stats on each point, and then as you fill up those things, because just because you're not knowledgeable doesn't mean you can't be a nerd. But you could also be highly knowledgeable and just not be a nerd. So um after doing that, I think knowledge, passion, imagination, useless trivia, because that's not quite the same as knowledge, but I don't know, maybe it's an extra credit thing. And somebody said on there high high intelligence, low charisma. I think charisma has a part of it. Your charisma, as
Hmm.
Pauly Shore likes to say, because some people are Star Wars nerds, some people are D&D nerds, some people are Aerosmith nerds. And if we're gonna drill down on these, your knowledge on a great many things, approximate knowledge of many things, Frank the human. And so I don't know. I guess those are my pillars: knowledge, passion, imagination, charisma.
And useless trivia, or was that
No, I'm gonna drop useless trivia because I think that's just kind of mixed in with knowledge and passion.
okay? So
Yeah,
why don't
like useless trivia is somewhere in between those. Like if you have 3 points in knowledge and 4 points in passion, useless
You get
trivia is
you get
like
a
an
bunch of new
unlocked.
useless trivia.
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
well, why don't you let's do it this way. Why don't you jump in and kind of like describe like, okay, good, what are the varieties of knowledge? What is someone with a lot of it versus a little bit of it? And then same with passion, same with imagination, same with charisma. Like let's really explore your points while we're on it and just kind of go like what is the plus and minus here? What do the combinations get to? Like so let's really get into your pillars, and then we'll do Jeremy's, and then we'll do mine. But let's have you define it as you see it first. Does that make sense?
Okay. Well, I think it is important to know. Probably, please correct me if I'm wrong. But for the remainder of the show, I think we're just gonna put nerds, geeks as kind of interchangeable
Yeah.
terms.
whoa,
Um,
whoa, not for me.
Oh no, not for you. Okay, well
No, they're
there's the correction. I mean, for me, they're interchangeable. I think there's a lot of heated debate, and I'm sure there's some facts that we could point to where somebody can describe the actual difference between those. But I'm not going to split hairs over those so much as like dweeb versus weeb, or
Oof.
you know doofus. So uh, so long as we're not getting into that point, but knowledge insofar as, so last week we were talking about knowledge of IPs. How well do you know Star Trek or Babylon 5? How well do you know Matchbox cars and their release dates? There are some people who know everything that you can need to know about stamps. I was reading one of my followers was posting pictures of his father's stamp collection, which a lot of people would consider, you got a stamp collection, that's pretty nerdy, dog. Like, hell yeah, man. Some of these stamps are from the 1800s. Like, that's awesome. So knowledge being, whether it's of the arts, the sciences, or the literatures, maybe a good nerd has an extensive knowledge of one thing versus a different type of good nerd has a really shallow level knowledge of a great many things. So we're saying like somebody who could do calculus in their head versus somebody who is very well aware of, 4 different seasons of Star Trek and all the different Star Wars movies, but doesn't really care for Babylon 5. And then where the passion hooks up to that is, would you consider yourself a tourist in those subjects, or do you consider yourself a connoisseur, an aficionado? In other words, you can be a nerd for any hobby that you're into. We just generally accept the nerdy hobbies to be, esoteric video games or, the underground tabletop role playing and war games, versus somebody who kind of claims to be a nerd. And I'll give my hot take here. I hope only if you're gonna take offense to this next thing I'm gonna say, maybe you just need to look inward and ask yourself, is that the kind of person I am? But if you're the person that wants to get into a hobby because you think it's cool, but you want to change everything about it that the general nerds of that hobby, thought was cool, and those are the people that worked really hard to try to maintain that thing, and you're going to come in there and just kind of, yeah, no, this is great, but it would be better if it's like this. Well, no, because that's like a core belief within our niche. Yeah, but it sucks, so I'm going to change it. That I think is going to make you a not very good nerd. That shows me, one, that you have no knowledge about that particular hobby, that you have zero passion about it, because if you had knowledge and passion about it, then you would understand why there's certain traditions in that hobby or accepted facts of it that made that hobby what it is, and that's why people like it. It's not up to you to change it. Charisma, because a lot of people who are like that are steadfast, stubborn jerks, and so yeah, typically people that are like that have no charisma. And then creativity, maybe you have some creative solutions or some creative ideas to change those things, but truly creative people don't destroy things, they add to them fruitfully. So maybe I think that's what would make a bad nerd. It's somebody who thinks they're knowledgeable and passionate, somebody who thinks they're creative and charismatic, and maybe they hold on to a lot of useless trivia facts about those things, but they don't really understand it. And I will twirl my hipster mustache while I say those things. Thank you very much.
He is. Okay, so you raise a couple points, and the thing here that kind of, it doesn't confuse me, but it's definitely worth asking. Can you kind of clarify what's the difference between passion and charisma?
Yes, because I can be extremely passionate about something and tell somebody really nicely, hey, I really like the fact that troll bloods have a thick Scottish accent with heavy Celtic Scottish like heritage and motifs around their culture. And I like the fact that they're drunkards and foul mouths, and I like the fact that fell callers are basically extremely horny bards who believe that they need to spread their seed because they have a direct lineage to like Mother Dunia.
Oh, that's right, lad.
Yeah, and then somebody else comes in here and says, "No, they're womanizers." And it's like, they're well-respected members of their community, and a lot of people actually would like to find a fell caller as a mate because it means that the troll blood, bloodline will remain strong and is willing to and is of the strength and the ability to stand up against oppression from like Signar and Kador, or let's look at Kador, conscripts and all that stuff. Some people are like, oh yeah, no, we can't have conscripts. I'm like, well, that's how Kador's like has always made its fighting force. It's what makes them unique
Not anymore.
amongst their other things. So there's, like I said, I can be passionate and tell you in those words, or I can be extremely passionate and have zero charisma, and I can call you, and then if you can edit in post all of the beep 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 you beep 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 and beep beep. So, you could be one of those, and I see it on Twitter all the time. I see very passionate, charismatic, knowledgeable, creative people trying to have arguments in good faith with people who are willing to have arguments with zero faith. And it's amazing to see some of the, well-educated and well-read people that I admire on these platforms kind of sink down to their level, because, sometimes those attitudes and those behaviors just draw it out of you. And you
Right.
can only use reason for so long before you just got to stand your ground and, refuse to be pushed around, especially by the people who want to destroy the thing that you've tried to protect and nourish before
Okay.
they even considered it an option.
So in other words, if I'm probably going to bastardize this slightly, but the difference in other words is passion is your attitude, your respect, and your viewpoint and your depth towards the subject, towards the knowledge, towards the lore, the thing or whatever. And charisma is your attitude about that with others. Is that fair to say? Or
Well, it's also social delivery. Like I said, I like to go back to the Pauly Shore son-in-law, Crawl.
yeah.
Crawl had lots of charisma. He could go to
But
all the sorts of
but
places.
he's not a nerd.
Dude. If anybody came rolling around in Steven Tyler PJs with a perm these days, they would definitely be called a nerd.
No, he's a dork.
Oh, fair. No.
Hmm.
Pauly Shore was a sex god and still is.
But he's a dork.
And he's one of the most charismatic dorks. Endearing even.
You can have a lot of charisma and be a dork.
You can also have a lot of charisma and
See,
enjoy
you should have started with
of cheesa.
We'll let you finish, but then I'll explain why he's a dork.
Okay, explain to me what he.
No, finish your whole thing. You gotta finish.
You're not a dork after you grow your dew and drink some brews.
Sure you are. So there's a cool Venn diagram out there, and you could have looked this up, but you had a whole week to do it and you didn't.
Dude, we keep talking about these Venn diagrams. Calm down, Kamala Harris.
Okay, so there's a Venn diagram out there, and it tells you, right?
Jeremy's a dork
There's
about Venn diagrams.
3 things that basically we're talking about, right? Your intelligence, your social ineptitude, and your obsession, right? And all 3 of those things need to be analyzed to decide whether you're a dweeb, a geek, a dork, or a nerd.
I think creep
right?
is inside of that Venn diagram too, isn't it?
No, not the ones that I've found, right? But a nerd, by definition, is someone who is passionate about learning, being smart, and academic, and falls in the dead center of all 3: intelligence, social ineptitude, and obsession. Whereas a dork is obsessed with something as is socially inept, right? And a geek is someone that is super intelligent and is obsessive, and a dweeb that is somebody is intelligent and socially inept. All right. So that is our Venn diagram of what those things are. And the nerdom itself, in my opinion, is made up of 4 pillars. All right. These 4 pillars are people who play video games, people who play RPGs, people who play miniature war games, and people who play tabletop, collectible card games like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh!
I feel like we just need to take a moment and say, careful with that Magic the Gathering. I hear there's Pinkertons rolling around these days.
So,
Man.
so that's my pillars of nerddom. And to fit in those pillars of nerddom, you must be someone who is passionate about learning, being smart, and academic. Doesn't matter about your charisma. You can be the most charismatic person in the world and be a nerd, or you could be someone that just doesn't have any charisma at all. As long as you're passionate about what you're learning, being smart, and having the brains to remember all this, you can be a nerd.
I think that's what we were saying. That's what I was saying. Is like you don't have to be charismatic, but if you're filling out points in some of the other sections there, and you're just kind of lacking in one, you could still be a nerd, and you could still be a good nerd. You just you're lacking the social skills to be able to relate to people who are nerds or who aren't nerds. Yeah, I should clarify. Nothing that I said, like you don't have to max out those stats in order to be a nerd. I'm just saying, like, of the things that we consider nerdy, let's who would you consider famous nerds then?
Joe Maganola.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Charismatic as shit too.
Yeah. Well, he's a nerd. Definitely. He's definitely not a geek or a dork or a dweeb. He's definitely in the nerd category. Matt Mercer's probably maybe closer to the nerd, but maybe the geeky level. I'm not sure. Matt Mercer's a hard one to pick. Because he seems to be very passionate about RPGs. He's pretty smart, I think. And very academic, but he might also well, no, he's definitely a nerd. Yeah, he is. He's very, very social and inept. So he's in the nerd category. He's not a geek for sure. So those two definitely fit in the nerd category. And there's people I think that actually don't fit in any of these categories, even though they're in our industry.
Right. And that's another thing that I was kind of alluding to is like, just because you have, extreme depth of knowledge doesn't necessarily make you a nerd. Like I wouldn't consider like Bill Gates is a dweeb, hardcore
Dweeb. Yeah, dweeb.
Yep. I would look at Elon Musk,
he
that
might
guy-
he might actually eke out of all of this, true. Even though he's kind of into all of it, he doesn't really fit any of the categories to me.
Not one is a standalone. He's really kind of all over.
Exactly.
He's charismatic, knowledgeable. He's passionate, creative. I'm sure he's got tons of useless trivia facts, but I wouldn't necessarily consider him a nerd. You know what I mean? It's not like he's rolling around. You need that certain je ne sais quoi.
Is it because he likes to smoke the wacky tobacco?
Does he like to?
Oh, yeah.
Is anybody ever going to let him off the Joe Rogan show? Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was like, I thought he just smoked the one time. I didn't know.
No, I'm pretty sure he does it more than that.
You
don't just smoke one time and don't cough.
Oh, I see. I wouldn't know. I go outside. I'm like, smells like that Satan spinach.
Oh, dude, come to LA. You're gonna be absolutely screwed up.
Oh, absolutely. No, yeah. I will
get
contact high once they hit this border of the state.
All he has to do is like cross right over into Washington. Jesus.
Oh yeah, I go into Spokane sometimes. Then I'm like,
Spokane, try smoking.
Bruski, who would you consider a famous nerd other than yourself?
Why, thank you. I love the feel of your lips on my posterior.
No, that's my lips on my mic, but yeah, it's
I mean, close proximity, right?
If I really had to think about a famous nerd, I mean, I'm kind of all over the spectrum. I look at guys like Black Magic Craft.
Yeah, Jeremy's pretty famous nowadays.
I just look at the fact that the guy is super, just going off your points. I mean, he's knowledgeable in materials and crafting and how to do stuff, and he's figured out stuff that I've never even thought of. Like, did you see his road video that just came out?
No,
Oh
I have to
yeah,
check
no,
that
I
out.
just watched it this morning. That was really good.
Rubber floor mat. Just
Yeah.
cut to your own length at Home Depot. Rubber floor mat, acrylic caulk, sand, gravel, flexible, bendable, doesn't warp, doesn't shrink, lays flat. Oh my God, brilliant.
But he has a super honed in freaking cutter because my cutter would never work.
He's just using a Stanley. I think one of
But
those.
he was also a civil engineer, was he not?
I think so.
I know he did construction and some sort of like architectural design before he became a full-time YouTuber.
I mean, yeah, we're jumping out of the frame of reference of him as a crafter and gamer and into more general knowledge, more general stuff. That's kind of why I say that. Yeah, I think he's more a nerd.
Okay.
But that's who I think of. And of course I could go, big names, Elon Musk, Bill Gates being a dweeb, whatever. But I'm thinking more closer to home, closer to the frame of reference, maybe even like a Duncan Rhodes. He's a little different though. I don't get the charisma. I get the passion. I don't get the charisma. He's very subdued from everything I've ever seen.
Yeah, Duncan might be in the more of I don't know, maybe.
Choose your words carefully. Careful now.
Does Duncan fit into the nerd category? I mean, he's very passionate,
Anybody who
very
came up with-
knowledgeable.
the man
but
who comes up with 2 thin coats, honorary.
but
I mean,
is he a nerd at all? Like, is he just is he a hanger-oner?
I think anyone realistically that's that involved with any kind of gaming is even if you're saying honorary, like yeah, but they probably are, It's
You
just
know
to
what?
what
No,
degree.
I guess you know what he is because he plays games. He does have he's into the game universe. Because I believe I just saw him. He was working up some Flames of War army.
Yep.
And I want to say some type of historical army for some historical game.
He did that in Catalyst Game Labs. The guys who make BattleTech have been going around and finding various people and go, why is BattleTech important to you or whatever. And he did one of those. He gave a whole spiel on what it meant to him, and it was very, very real, very heartfelt. It was more than I've really seen him say about much of anything in a while. So,
Oh yeah, so yeah, Duncan's a nerd. Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
I'll tell you who we missed. The Lord Emperor himself, Henry Cavill.
okay, there we go.
Yeah, there's
Oh.
somebody who's got it all.
There is your big Jimmy of nerddom.
Yeah, I mean, this guy just maxes out on all sides, and that guy's like a huge nerd, which is really funny because we look at Elon Musk and guy's built like a beer keg, and we don't consider him a nerd.
Yeah.
Because maybe he's not into our culture. He doesn't play Magic the Gathering that we know of, or doesn't do D&D that we know of. He doesn't play miniature games that we know of. He's knowledgeable about a ton of stuff. He's more of like if anything, I think he'd be on the geek spectrum.
Watch, he's probably got a secret 10,000 point AdMech army.
Or maybe he'll hear this. He'll hear this podcast and then he'll have to respond to us like, little do you know, I have 10,000 points of Tomb Kings.
He comes on there, treats us like that guy from the BBC. Excuse me, sir, that's a false.
I can't wait to see the Yahoo headline. Elon Musk joins trio of gamers, elevates to stardom.
Jeremy broke it down into 4 pillars, like video games, tabletop role-playing games, tabletop war games, and TCGs. So why was it like the types of games that you play that you chose to be the pillars of nerdity or geekdom?
I guess I could add a 5th pillar of board gaming, but I felt like if you wanted to be a nerd, you had to be knowledgeable and into some type of game. Because that's
so knowledgeable being the precursor.
Yeah, because being a nerd, you have to be someone who is passionate about learning and being smart and academic about that item.
So, in other words, it's in frame of reference to hobbyists and gamers.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all. And then I think afterwards you said passionate about learning, smart, academic, right?
Yep.
Okay, so those are if you put it in the frame of reference of gamers in general across those 5 points, you come up with 3: passionate about learning, smart, and academic.
Exactly. Whereas a
Oh.
geek is someone who's just passionate about something in one specific area or subject. So they wouldn't want to be more involved in more than one thing. Whereas a dork is someone that's just kind of someone that has to be well, they just have a the dork is the guy who sits at the table all by himself because he really can't socially interact with anybody. And
And for
everybody
all
knows
you
one of those.
dorks out
And
there,
like when you were in high school, I guarantee there was one person you called a dork because he didn't have any friends.
I was friends with everybody.
No, there was one kid, I guarantee you, at your school that no one hung out with, period, and you called that kid a dork.
I
I
I can
There's
absolutely
one kid.
promise you, if the people that I went to high school with would tell the honest truth about who I was as a person when I was in high school, and I'm not much different now than I was back then. I made friends with the people that nobody wanted to be friends with, took them underneath my wing, and
Hey,
there was not a lot I wouldn't do for those type of people.
so Pat, you're just saying that you're the dork
I I was the king
because
of dorks.
because
I
no
was
one wanted to be your friend. You tried to be friends with everybody.
Hmm. Up until I met you guys, I definitely felt that way. It was like a super dark, depressing Naruto flashback moment. I
No,
lost all
so
of
like
my friends.
I guarantee you, out of everybody here in this podcast right now, I went to the smallest school. I had 15 people in my graduating class and 72 in my whole entire high school.
you win.
He's a dork.
All right. And there was one kid, and I'm not going to say his name, but there was one kid that no one liked at all, period. He was kind of just off on his own, and he was the dork. And because I was in the nerdy category, people kind of lumped me in with him until I started playing sports. And so he was my friend until I started playing sports. And so that's how I know that every school has one dork. There is one dork out there. I was a nerd in school and I had to be friends with the dork. And I come from a tiny school. Tiny.
Like I said, I didn't argue the fact that there was at least one dork. I'm just saying that if those people existed, I more than likely wanted to be their friend. Like they would have to do something very off the wall for me to be like, yeah, you want to know what that was cool, but no, we're not cool.
Hmm.
And for the record out there, it's like there's nothing inherently wrong with being that quiet, reserved guy that doesn't socialize well, or maybe you don't have very many friends. That's perfectly okay. There are people out there for you, and with the modern nicety of the internet, you can meet those people.
Right. It's kind of like us. It's like, we're all in separate environments by quite a ways, but we get along fairly well. And we've got different social circles. Like Paddy is, tearing it up on Twitter. I'm plodding along by comparison. He's a little more out there, a little more friendly. I'm a little more schedule crazy. It's just it is a thing. And
I don't use Twitter.
there you go. But it's like, yeah, it's the ability versus the choice. Okay, I want to interact with a bunch of people. I don't want to interact with a bunch of people. I can't interact with a bunch of people. It's a very different thing. So,
Oh yeah, you're right.
I guess maybe I'm not the socially outputting person out of this group. Oh no.
Oh no, he's the dork.
I'm the dork. Oh no.
How the tables have turned. And to be clear, everybody, like none of this is to bash anyone or hit on anyone. It's just kind of like this is a discussion of what are these things, what makes it that way. And we're kind of ranging on and in and out of the gaming aspect of it, to some degree. We're talking guys who have nothing to do with it, and then we're getting guys who do. So I think we're just all over the map on that, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're crazy. We crazy as hell, y'all.
Yeah. Oh, it is a primarily gaming centered podcast, so it would make sense that we try to focus on that. But I think nerdiness as a whole, you get like comic book nerds, right?
Yeah.
Movie nerds.
Yeah, I guess there could be comic book nerds. They could fit in there somewhere, even though I didn't put them in my pillars.
So if it was comic book nerds, would you choose like DC, IDW, Marvel, and like Mad Cow?
Well, anybody that picks IDW automatically gets thrown into the freaking geek category.
Oh boy. Shots
Uh,
fired.
so Marvel, Dark Horse are probably my favorite two out of the comic book series, but Marvel's kind of like lagging behind at this point. I'm not even sure where Dark Horse. I don't think I've bought a comic in 10 years.
It's been a long time for me, but Dark Horse had Umbrella Academy and the lives of, or what is it, the Fabulous Lives of the Killjoys, or the True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys.
I have no clue what either of those comics are. Don't
Those are both
care.
Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance. Those are both his comics. But they also had Goon and Hellboy.
Mhm.
That yeah, Goon and Hellboy, but I would start it with them with the Predator and the
Oh yeah,
Aliens
AVP.
comics. Yeah, that's where I started with Dark Horse. And the original Dark Horse actually is based out of Portland, Oregon. And they had a local comic book shop called Things from Another World that would like sold their comics there locally, and they were all black and white. They didn't have any color art.
Mm.
Uh, so like that's how far back I go with Dark Horse. I kind of fell off of buying them once they stopped really publishing Aliens and Predator, and for a while they had the Conan license.
That's
Oh,
right.
you want to know which one I missed? The Mask. The Mask was a Dark Horse comic, wasn't it?
Maybe I'm not
I
sure.
have the
I-
omnibuses here somewhere.
I never saw those, so not sure.
Like the mask from like the movie The Mask.
Oh yeah, Stanley Ipkiss, the character as he was in the movie versus who he was in the comic book, vastly different. The comic book, for the first volume of it, like a good majority of it, was actually the detective. You know, the kind of shrimpy looking nerdy detective that follows him around in the movie.
So in 1989, Dark Horse published the first issue of It's The Mask. If you want to buy it on eBay, it would be $150.
Really?
This is unopened, never read.
Yeah, I think his name was Doug Menke.
That wrote it.
Yeah. Who was the artist?
I can't see it right now.
Anyway, good stuff. I liked reading it. He also did a comic book called Super Slacktacular. And it was about this just super slacky, scrawny teenage kid ended up getting injected with like alien superpowers, and he led like this ragtag crew of just other everyday normal people who got gifted with this alien genome that gave them superpowers. Anyway,
Cool.
I think it might have been a guy named John Arcadia that wrote the original Mask.
John Acrudi.
Acrudi, yeah, that's it. Acrudi. There you go. And then it looks like he was followed on by somebody named Doug Mankini.
Yeah, he was the artist.
I'll tell you two things that surprised me, but that actually really interested me. And one of these days I will grab them. And surprisingly, they're both Marvel. Marvel picked up comic book adaptations of The Dark Tower by Stephen King and Ender's Game.
I didn't know about the Ender Games one. That's
They did, and they went fully in. They did Ender Shadow, they did Command School, they did the prequel stuff. I think they've done it all.
Wow.
And they did it. They did a decent job.
I was a little disappointed with the Ender's Game movie. I
Little
was
bit.
super excited for it.
A little bit, yeah.
Harrison Ford did okay. The kid who played Ender did okay, but the movie just seemed lackluster overall.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but the book to movie,
maybe they just should have like did the second movie, and it might have made more sense where it went. But I guess it probably didn't make enough money.
Brian, I think you did the most research though, because we'll go on this tangent for forever, and maybe we should consider doing like an extra credit class on some of this other stuff. But I really want to know what Savage's pillars of nerdiness, geekadom are.
Well, alrighty. I first off, I got to preface by saying, geeks, nerds, I'm gonna ignore all that stuff. I'm just gonna kind of go at it. And I looked at this from the same sort of statogram viewpoint, and this is, the differences in each of these 4 points would give you, what is a closet nerd versus, who's a super nerd, or who's a community type guy, who's the social nerd, you know, like that would give you those kind of differences. I don't want to compare it to Myers-Briggs because I don't believe in percentiling people really, but I think it just gives you a different type. I think that's all it is. The 4 I came up with are knowledge, immersion, application, and dissemination. Okay, those are what I actually think makes a nerd. Probably the simplest is knowledge. How much, and again, putting this in gamer terms more than other things, but it would apply outside. How much knowledge, how much lore does the person have? You know, I'm sure we know people who literally can walk around and they're like they could mentally fill up a wiki on a certain game or a certain background or a certain fandom, you know, whatever it is. Like, oh yeah, Game of Thrones, Ned Stark, he carries a great sword called Ice, blah, 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 blah. Ice was then turned into Heart Eater and Widow's Wail or this other thing or whatever the hell, you know. They could like just go on and on and on and on and just have tons of knowledge about something. Inversely, someone doesn't necessarily have to have a ton of knowledge. It definitely would make for a much more effective and a much more capable nerd, I think, but someone doesn't have to have a ton of knowledge, but they can have interest. The other points kind of take up there. So that's essentially knowledge. Immersion, I went into how often or how much do they do something with that. This is somebody like, okay, let's take a really simple one like Warhammer 40K. Does the person literally have like one box set and they just kind of pick it up once every couple months and have a game with a buddy? Or are these guys literally going to every con? Are they on social media? Are they cosplaying? You know, are they really just out there? Are they doing a lot with it? Essentially, how involved are they? It's not a matter of what do they do, but how much, how often, how deep in. You know, if you look around their house or whatever, do they literally have a whole room dedicated to this, or do they just kind of put it up on the shelf and pick it up every 6 months? Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Application is more what are they doing, and is it more or less accurate? Is it quality? This is kind of an outside principle I use, and it's just a standpoint of competence. Can the person knows something, quote unquote, can they do it? This guy is a marketing guru. Can he go out and boom his company, et cetera, et cetera? In terms of game and hobby, okay, good. The person, you know, can they actually paint? Do they know about thinning paint and layering and highlighting and dry brushing and using shades and washes and mediums? And can they get a really good product? Tactically, can they build an army or a force that's going to work really well? Is it well thought out? If they're crafting, can they literally be like Black Magic Craft and give you, great, here's a tutorial that is never going to steer you wrong, and you know how to make craters or hills or whatever the hell, you know, like how well do they do it? And the last one is dissemination. And this, you could argue it's more a social point, but it's like, okay, if you have someone who is really passionate about a fandom or a hobby or a game, if they're really into that kind of thing, are they talking it up? Can they get a group going? Is this the guy that is the black hole that suddenly pulls people to him and has this gravitational force to create a group? Is this the guy who starts the gaming club and suddenly he's got 20 friends and they're all having a ball? Do they help other people? Do they answer questions? Are they willing to? Are they willing to be social? Those are the 4 pillars as far as I'm concerned of nerddom or geekdom or whatever. And I think, again, the different stratogram strengths and weaknesses is what gives you different things. In other words, you could have someone who plays Warhammer and they have no idea about factions. Like they pick up a Space Marine kit and they go, I like the color blue and orange. And they slap blue and orange on. They don't care about insignia. They don't care about organization. They're just looking at the points list. They have very little knowledge. They have very little, you know, maybe less immersion. They could play all the time, and then they're pretty high in immersion and application, but they don't have a lot of knowledge. And, you know, you get the guys that do it because their friends play. You get the guys who are involved because of people they're around. And then it's like, okay, they're not so much the disseminator. They're not the guy who's talking it up and preaching it, but they get involved. Okay, fine. That might be your closet nerd. The follow the leader, the I'm a joiner, not a doer, or whatever. Application, if that's low, you get someone who, the famous, all gray army, or the guy who doesn't bother with flash and mold lines and just like horribly super lose all the models all over the places intentionally. He just doesn't give a crap, or, throws all his models in a box, no storage, no protection, no nothing. Yeah. You would just get a different category of nerd depending on what you have here. But I think those are the 4 different points that really allow you to categorize and to really determine the strengths and the weaknesses. And oddly, my frame of reference is more the guys we see across YouTube. For instance, you could look at I'm just going to keep going back to guys we know here. Black Magic Craft is probably way up there in immersion and application, because he can whip out terrain like nobody's business. And he's got, if you look at his shelves, he's got so many models and so much terrain and so many books and so much background and lore that he probably doesn't really get into on his channel. Speaking of which, he has a channel. So obviously he's a disseminator. This guy is very much, you would say, a social nerd, and he's a very capable one at that. You look at a guy like Mel, the terrain tutor, he's definitely got a lot of knowledge, and he does have a channel. Immersion is questionable because he's really about doing terrain, but I don't know how often or how much he games. He might even take a hit on dissemination, because sometimes, not a hit on him, but he's a little more awkward. He's a little more reserved, and sometimes he's, not even for health. He's just, few and far between on the videos or something. And then you get the more inflammatory guys, like look at a lore channel like Major Kill. A lot of knowledge, a lot of dissemination, not really much immersion and application. He does play, but it's not the focus. He does game, but how often? I don't know.
Okay.
You get the scholarly nerd. You get the ivory tower nerd to some degree. I don't know. That's my take. That's what I think, and I think that's how you categorize. I think those are the main points, and I think that allows you to really tear it up and define what kind you have and how much you have.
Okay. So then I guess, is there ever really a question of what is a good nerd versus a bad nerd? Because that was one of the other questions that I asked on my Facebook. And initially I didn't mean like, I am a nerd for the forces of good, or I am a malicious nerd because I want to be evil.
Well, that's a good.
Some people answered it like that.
That's a good point, and I think I looked at that because I know and I understand actually about a couple different types of personality testing. And one of the factors that will come in is you get a sort of plus and minus scale to things. And arguably you could actually say that there is in terms of intent, morality, and purpose, whatever you want to say in that vein, you could have a plus and a minus to each of these points. In other words, okay, good. In terms of the dissemination, is the person trying to subvert the hobby? Is the person trying to constantly change things, versus do they respect lore? Do they just want to get along and have a good time, or do they want to do something more nefarious in terms of what they're doing? Do they want to take over the gaming group and get it more to their liking? Do they want to fit it to the real world? Application, are they actually out there to give bad advice? Are they trying to steer someone the wrong way? Are they trying to eliminate competition in tournaments? Immersion, are they really just one of these guys that unfortunately is super lethargic, apathetic, depressed? They do it as a means of escapism, but they're really negative about it all the time. Knowledge, are they actually, is this a guy that doesn't even bother reading the lore or the fluff and then wants to tell you all about how it really is? You see? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that's a pillar. I'd say it's just what type, again. But I think the intent, the purpose, the type of personality, and that's with anyone, you know. I don't think that comes into what is a good nerd versus a bad nerd, but that's how I would answer that question. But it really is just, is it a good person or a bad person? And I'm not God. So
It's hard to judge.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with Bruski. It's not much, are they a good nerd or a bad nerd? It's more of, are they a good person or a bad person? Because I definitely have had interaction with those people. They're obviously nerds. They would talk about like stuff that I'd have no clue about, like Dragon Ball Z and being power level, whatever it is, 9,000 or whatever they'd say. I'm like, I'd be totally fucking lost. I'm like, what are you talking about? But then like I'd be playing a game with them and I'm like, I really have no desire to play with you ever again because you made this a miserable and unenjoyable experience whatsoever, because everything had to be the way you said it was, and you would argue every little bit of piece. So like, yeah, you're obviously a nerd because you know a lot about shit that I have no clue about, excuse my language, but uh you're not a person I want to talk to or hang out with because you just make life miserable because you're a miserable person yourself.
Right.
Yeah, so that's like a bad nerd.
That's not a bad nerd. That doesn't make him a bad nerd. It makes him a bad person.
I would say if you're you could be a bad person, or you could be a decent person, but also kind of a bad nerd. But I think if you're a bad person, you're just pickled out. You're too bitter. You're too salty. So I've run into a couple of those people. So like when I think of some good nerds, right? First off, I'll name drop. I'll name drop Venger Satanis. We're talking somebody who's knowledgeable about the TTRPG space and so many pop culture references. Somebody who's passionate about it, and somebody like, I talk about actions being louder than words. A guy who goes out of his way to commission art for his own rule setting. Somebody who's willing to support that hobby and help other creators grow. The guy put out a blog spot today saying how he's going to not only go out of his way to make exclusive content for like small game distributor websites like Big Geek Emporium and soon to be Giant Slayer Games, another website, Giant Slayer Games. Um, and again, very charismatic. He does his blog, he does his YouTube video, he does weekly online sessions that he lets his fans come into. That's a good nerd, somebody who's ready to like cultivate and drive the hobby forward, even if you don't agree with his politics. Another good nerd is Grim Jim James Desborough,
Mhm.
somebody who is very much different than I, but I think he listens to my opinions. If not, he has a vastly different political viewpoint than Venger. But not only is he willing to listen to it, but he's willing to entertain those views and opinions on his website and on his YouTube channel. That's a good nerd, somebody who's willing to uplift voices while being secure and confident in his own messaging and in his own art. And then you get bad nerds. Like I think, okay, maybe I'm feeling a little too comfortable, but Will Wheaton, I'm talking somebody who's just started off as a good nerd and then developed a lot of bad faith amongst fans, amongst passerbys. And there's people who are like that. There's people who have really good intentions that are really terrible at messaging that I would consider good nerds. One of these people, again, name drop, RPG pundit, someone who's trying to look after the hobby, trying to cultivate it and grow it, has very hard stance opinions about things, and sometimes that's to his great detriment. And I wish him the best, but at least he's not Will Wheaton. Like, holy crap!
What's all the hate on Will Wheaton for?
That guy is just a snob. I don't like him.
I think where Patty's going, and correct me if I'm wrong, Patty. I remember quite a few times in the past he would get very, very judgmental of others around him, people that he would work with, people that he got involved in different hobby stuff with, and it just became like an us versus them. It was just a created us versus them kind of situation.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, who is the Gamergate girl? That lady.
Jenny D.
No, see, Ginny D, you know, and
I
I'm
don't
sure
even know. I'm just throwing names out there.
There are gonna be people who I like. There are gonna be people that I look up to that I think have really good ideas. And if they hear me say this right now, they're gonna be like, "Boo, Paddy! We thought you were one of the good guys." I don't mind Ginny D, and I think we talked about this a little bit before. Um, you know, for all of her cutesy faults, and maybe she games the way that people don't agree with. But one of the things that I like about Ginny D is she keeps it light and she keeps it positive, and that's worth the price of admission. I could take it or leave it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the original guy is not Voltaire. It's I swear to God, I forget the actual name, and I think it's actually a woman, honestly. But there's this old saying, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And I think that's
That's right.
something that not just with gamers, but in society is entirely lacking right now. Like people are so obsessed that people have to agree with them or their viewpoint or their way of life. And it's just a point of tolerance that is fucking missing. And it's the biggest thing. It's like, fine, I can have a game with anyone and I can just enjoy my time. And I don't care if they're, doing the Rainbow Space Marines or if they have female Space Marines or whatever. Like that's fine. The guy can even be telling me, "Oh my God, you're patriarchal," and blah 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 blah, and I can still just go, "Cool, dude, got it. I'm here to game. Let's roll some dice, man." Not even take it up and not even make a point of it, and just go, "Great, I can grant you that viewpoint. I can go, good. I'm cool with you doing that. I'm not going to agree with it. I don't have to go into agreement to have a game with him, but I can allow him that viewpoint. The only problem where I run into something is where someone is like demanding capitulation, like you must accept, you must agree, you must blah blah blah, and then it's like, okay, cool. There's only so far you're gonna go, and there's only so far they're gonna push that before it becomes like, okay, do you see what's going on here?
Paint your Space Marines in rainbow colors and put female Sigmarite heads on your Space Marines. I think that's cool. Anybody who's going to have that much passion to make their army look the way they want it, that's cool. But if you're going to play 40K, show up at my table and then basically say this game is for white supremacist fascists, I'm like, why are you playing it? Go play a different game.
Yeah, if you're so against it, don't do it. Like I don't know, I don't get your principles at that point. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah. I hate this thing, but I'm going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on it.
It's like these guys who are constantly like, oh my God, this capitalist country is so bad, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, why didn't you move to China yet?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was actually watching a YouTuber today. I don't know if you guys ever watch him. His channel's called the Warhammer Man, I think. Yeah, Warhammer Man.
I don't think I have.
No, not on
He
radar.
basically just breaks down upcoming stuff from Games Workshop. And today his video was about I want to say it came out today. Maybe it was yesterday and I just watched it today. And it was breaking down the new kill team. And since it's the last box in this season, he was kind of bashing it. Warhammer Man Studios is what his actual channel is, and he was talking about the new kill team box, and he was bashing it because it's the final box, and the season had 4 boxes in it, and each of the 4 boxes introduced basically a brand new army to the game. The first box you had your I believe it was the crew versus the Imperial Navy. So you got your Imperial Naval breachers, which never been in the game before. So it's brand new army to the game. I believe you also got the crew were a brand new kit as well. So 2 brand new kits for that first box set. The second box set I believe was who was it? It was not your custodes, the Astra Militarum guys with the rifles.
Krieg?
Yeah, not Death Corps Krieg, not your Death Corps Krieg, the other guys, Hotshot las guns.
Kazakhin.
Yeah, your Krashkakins and they
Cadians, yeah.
And then they were up against another faction, I don't remember, but the Krashkakins were a brand new kit, and the other ones just had an upgrade sprue. And then your next box had your your Dark Eldar with an upgrade sprue versus the cops that Arbites, the Adeptus Arbites.
Arbites, yeah.
Yeah. And then your last box is your the new Leagues of Votan where they get a little upgrade sprue against Beastman. And he was kind of complaining that the kill team boxes each got like a brand new faction, 4 brand new factions basically for the game. They really didn't have a place in them. Well, the Karskins did. They got at it back in Imperial Guard Codex, but they really didn't have a spot before. Instead of already existing armies getting their time to shine in kill team, I'm like, I think that's a good spot for kill team to be in. Kill team should be showcasing these armies that don't have a spot for the main game. That's the point of the kill team, to have an army that doesn't have a main army somewhere else. Why do you
want
want
Warcry sold so well? Because all the different chaos factions?
well, not even just chaos factions. It was the fact that you could buy into all these tiny little factions that you didn't have to spend $700 to get a fully playable army for.
I mean, army's questionable, but yeah, it's like,
I mean, if you're into the skirmishy games, $60 gets you into that game.
Yeah.
You know, for the most part, $60. If you're buying the full box set, it was like $220, I think, but it gave you the terrain and the board and all the tokens. That's the point of these games. It's their entry level. They don't need to be full blown armies. Why do I want to? Maybe I don't want to spend $700 on a full Arbites army, but I do want to play Arbites, so I can buy this $60 box that has Arbites in it, and now I can play a game with them. And I think he's missing the point. He's like, well, I want a Tyrannid. If you want Tyranids, go buy the Tyrannid box of Warriors. It's like $55, and buy a box of Homogods for $43. Yeah, you spent $90 now, but you have a faction you can play in Kill Team.
That's a terrible idea. You need to wait for the new edition when the new Tyranids come out. How dare you?
but that was his point. He's like, why didn't we get new Tyranids in Kill Team? I'm like, well, probably A, because they're getting brand new sculpts in 6 months, and they knew that because everything's planned out basically 3 years in advance. And B,
it was a missed opportunity to put the new Tyranids into a Kill Team box, because then the people who would have bought the new Tyranids would have looked at the new starter box for 10th edition and would have said, man, I've already got like a unit of Tyranids. I could just buy this box and then I'd be set to go.
I don't agree. You're that new starter box is going to sell itself because it's going to be Marines versus Tyranids. You're going to have those Terminators. Everybody's going to want those new Terminators if they're Marine players.
I mean, this is the classic adage of, you know, there's only one thing gamers hate more than change, and that's how things stay the same. It's like, okay.
So Warhammer Man Studios, he's kind of one of those guys. I'm like, he's probably one of the he's definitely in the nerd group, but is he like a bad nerd for me? Because like I watch his videos just to see what he's bitching about week to week, because he almost always just bitches. It's either about the price at Games Workshop or that their decision was wrong. Sometimes he'll give him props, but like he always does these like price things. I'm like, but he never takes into consideration that you can get almost all this stuff from like a secondhand place for 20% off. So even if you're not paying like this discount of like, I'm buying the Start Collecting or the Combat Patrol box, I can get that same model for 20% off somewhere else, kind of thing.
I mean, yeah, and that's kind of where you go with the intent, because have you guys seen Northern Exile?
I have not seen Northern Exile.
Paddy?
No, I don't think I have.
He's a YouTuber and he's got a Discord, and this is a guy who used to work in GW. He's British, and his channel and his Discord essentially is to help motivate and help de-stress. I don't know how else to say, but elevate, lift out of depression hobbyists and gamers. And he's got a couple different fixtures, and he will from time to time, when there's a new release, just tear it up for the stupidity of it. Or he will go into different business practices that Games Workshop does that he experienced as a store manager, as a black shirt, and, you know, all the different stuff he got into. And then he has a whole thing called Hobby Nightmares, and people will literally write him about these crazy ass experiences. Remember I told you the story of the guy who was getting like taunted and jeered at a tournament, and he was kind of on the spectrum. And then just as he was leaving, he literally lobs his army case and just pancakes this 2,000-point AdMech army, or the a-hole who was making fun of him.
Yep.
Yeah, that's his channel. And again, it's kind of like, good. He will get very raw. He'll swear. He'll get negative. He's very much against the FSM and lore should represent everybody kind of crowd. He's very much against that kind of thing. But the purpose of the underlying purpose is to show what is not working and what is not cool about Games Workshop, and B, to then give gamers and hobbyists a place to vent and a place to come out of all that stuff and come out of their social problems. That's ultimately the purpose behind it. You could say what he's saying is kind of weird, and you could say what he's saying is offensive and blah blah blah, but the intention behind it is to allow people to get that stuff off. I wouldn't call him a bad nerd at all. Maybe he comes across as negative. Maybe he comes across as a little bit more of a downer. Okay, fine. But the purpose is there, and it's for a much better point. It's like, okay, show me someone who never complains, and I'm probably going to smack you upside the head and go, they're full of shit. Realistically.
That's an AI bot.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave from Mini Wargaming is not an AI bot, and I've never heard him complain.
I put him right up there. He's like right up there with Henry Cavill. He's just another pantheon.
So yeah, Dave would be my nerd hero, by the way. I love Dave. I just caught his Adepticon video about how Warhammer basically saved him, and man, talk about the feels. It made me freaking cry watching this grown man talk about this. And whew, me and Dave are friends from meeting at Valhalla, and I messaged him on Facebook right after I watched it, and he thanked me for the call out, and he's like giving you the best, brother. Good to hear from you too. And I was like, man, Dave, you're good people. So
that's wholesome. That's the wholesome content we live for.
So yeah, Dave, man, I've never, I can't think of a single time I've heard something negative from Dave about any game, even Warhammer. And he's obviously not as into Warhammer as much now that he's launched his own game with Ravaged Stars. But geez,
yeah, that comes with the territory.
And
if you make your own game, you certainly can't say anything bad about it.
Sometimes. Oh yeah, but I mean, but his game, it obviously is going to compete with Games Workshop because he's.
Dude, and I hope it competes so well. I hope it makes somebody sweat.
Probably is.
But I can be petty Paddy sometimes too.
I mean, it's even the worst you could say, and you can totally tell he's just having fun, like when he used to make fun of like Tau.
Oh yeah, no, he hates.
Right. He
does hate on Tau quite a bit, but you know what? He's played Tau now, so
yeah, like all those skit videos. It was just like it was in good fun, and you could tell it was in good fun. If anyone walked away from that butthurt, they were looking for it.
You know who I can't wait to see? Like, so War Budgies is already like a super good nerd. I have this feeling that I'd really like to see him come out and like publish like adventure books similar to War Machine Oblivion for either War Machine or Warcaster.
Hold on. Didn't he just put out a thing today for War Machine?
Dude, if he put it out today, yeah, I certainly missed it. I didn't get home. I worked 12 hours today. I tried to take a nap as soon as I got home.
I was flat out all day.
Let me look. I think it just came out today.
I know that he was working on the book for Jericho Reach, or he was working on something.
Well, that's already out, but that's not. That's
yeah.
out. It's been out for a while. But
yeah, he released that mid-campaign. That's already out.
That's just like a digital download that you can add, and it gives like the background for his story about Jericho Reach, which is awesome. It's a really good book. I love it.
I'm talking like an actual book, like I said, specifically like the Oblivion book, or even his own game.
I don't think he'll do his own game.
I mean, May's coming up. We'll get the opportunity to ask him.
Yeah, he will be on with us probably not next week, but the week after, I think is what he told me he could do.
Oh man, I hope I don't miss it. I gotta go out of town here soon.
It's called Tyrants of the Field. the Black Tide Cape campaign. So it's coming out. He's already done a battle report. It's up on YouTube. So the book might not be out already, but it's coming soon. So, and it's called the Black Tide Campaign. That's the book he wrote with Privateer Press.
Well,
And
that's awesome.
And he did a battle report, and it's Dusk versus Orgoth.
Well, I knew I called it. I like I said, that's exactly the reason why I said it just a moment ago. It's like I feel it coming. That's a good nerd who's like in the hobby, not for self gain. That is for somebody who I wish him like great amounts of self gain because he deserves it. But at the same time, somebody who I think is going to just enhance the tabletop experience.
Man, he built like this 5-foot long, I think it's a Khador wall. It looks very Khador, and it might not be Khador, but I might be calling it wrong. But it's this big defensive wall that he's gonna bring to the Brookcore Ball, which I think is this weekend.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it just he posted it up on his Facebook, and it looks beautiful. I'm like, damn it, Bruski. Or I mean, Budgies, how do you spend all the time building this stuff? When I was active duty, I couldn't spend time building this kind of stuff.
Oh man. Different line of work, different fields. I don't know.
Yeah, Air Force.
Rough.
The one thing I gotta hold against him,
he can't go for a run.
That's the one thing I gotta hold against him. He's a fly boy.
He's pretty fly for a budgies guy.
But no, yeah, man, I can't wait to have him on the show with us. He's gonna be a blast to talk to for sure.
Budgies, we love you.
This has to be Khador's. It has a big ass bear. He obviously hand drew this bear on the gate of it, and it has like these big bear gargoyles on each of the corners of
That's sweet.
He looks like he made maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wall sections. It must be about 8 inches across each of them.
I'm canceling YouTube if I'm looking him up right now, and if I'm not subscribed to him because he doesn't pop up on my feed anymore, I'm canceling YouTube. I'm gonna go down there and tell them what the heck.
Oh my god. I seriously, I solidly respect Budgies for a number of reasons. His bat reps are awesome, but the fact that he crafts and builds a lot of his own terrain and boards, and it's not simple is not the word, but it's well done with a minimum of effort. Like I loved his that big portal board with like the vertical stuff going up for the last couple the Warcaster season 1 ending bat rep. A lot of his terrain. I know he says he goes to PetSmart and all that stuff, but he crafted all that other stuff. It was like, Jesus H, dude.
I'm actually looking at closer pictures of this wall, and it actually looks like he used like coffee stir sticks that he then like cut the shape and everything and built this wall with, and then paint it red. And it's definitely Khador. It says no enemy of the motherland has ever breached the walls of Silverhold. And the event Brookcore Ball is starting today, the 28th through the 30th of April. So keep your eyes out for stuff on that. I'm sure he'll be posting on his channel soon.
Oh, heck yeah.
All right. Well, so I've got kind of a rounding out thought for the topic, and if you guys don't have one.
Shoot, I don't have nothing.
Let it rip.
Except for make you cry when you're done.
Oh, I am a emotional man. I cry. I am very okay with that. No, just some signs to look out for. And this also goes back to a pretty good conversation that was being had on that Twitter thread. Was like signs to look out for if you're being a bad nerd. Because I think we can accept that there are bad nerds out there. And those are people who like the term gatekeeping gets tossed around a lot. What are your guys' thoughts on gatekeeping?
I hate gatekeepers personally. I see no reason for it at all. I don't think I've ever tried to gatekeep. I try to introduce people to every single game. And like, hey, look, this is the reason to get into this game. If you're not interested, then there's this game. If there's a different game, like tell me what you're interested in playing, and we'll play it. Believe me, I need games. I need somebody to game with.
I don't really look this is kind of where I'm at. The idea of gatekeeping, in other words, there are people that you don't want to game with on the presumption of how they will act or play or what they do or something, versus I think policing would be a better word. And what I mean by that is, okay, good. I have 10 people that get along, and one guy literally is just picking fights with everyone. Okay, cool. I'm gonna have words with that guy and go, yo, what are you trying to do? You know, that's what I would do. But I don't believe that you should naturally be prejudiced and exclude people from gaming or playing or hobbying or whatever on presumption.
There you go.
It's
That's where
inspection.
I'm at.
It's inspection before the fact. Like, great, I'll sit down and have a game with anybody. Like, okay, true story. My buddies in high school would basement game for most of the time, and we did Warhammer, we did D&D, and we did Magic. And we had one dude that had a girlfriend that one time was like, yeah, I'll come and I'll play. And literally she's putting down models, and turn one, she decides she's more interested in like texting somebody, and she's just not there and not interested. And she just starts complaining like crazy. Like, can we go? Are we done yet? Blah, 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 and just doesn't stop. And, we just went to the point of like, okay, like we get it. We didn't like rag on her or anything, but we told our friend, her boyfriend, we were like, dude, like you just shouldn't bring her when we're gonna game. She just literally hates it. She doesn't want to do it, and it was just a big killjoy.
Actually, Ashley, my wife currently was like that. She used to RPG with us, but it got to the point where like she didn't seem to be as interested in the game anymore as she was paying attention to her phone, and she just would pay attention when it was only her turn. And so like eventually I was like, hey, we'd love to have you game with us if you want a game, but if you don't, just jump out. That's fine. We don't mind. We're not gonna hate on you because you don't want to join the game with us.
Yeah.
But we will hate on you if you join our game and make it a non-enjoyable experience for everyone.
True. And I've actually had games where like I as I've stated in the past, like I've been mostly the event coordinators for a lot of tournaments, been the TO. And one time I was like, look, I don't want to TO at all. And this other guy, Vince, he'd won the last 4 or 5 tournaments in a row. And he's like, I'll TO for you and you can play. And the first round, no one wanted to be like paired with this one specific player, but because everybody just didn't like the player at all. But I was like, look, he can't really be that bad, right? And I was like, and they're like, I was like, look, I'll pair with him. And on my first turn of the game, I put my stuff to where I could see like a good third of his army. The only one unit here on the board, I could see most of that unit. And he's like, you can't see me. I'm behind this building. And I'm like, I can totally see your guys. I can see him from right here. And he's like, well, I'll call the judge over. So I turned around to call Vince over to the table. Vince was the judge. And when I turned back around, all his models had been moved. And I was like,
I don't know if I know. Well,
you
no,
gotta
I
be
think I know
fucking joking me.
And I think anybody that's ever gone to LVO probably knows who that player is.
Yes, I would say pretty much anybody that's been LVO.
We'll leave it at that.
Or the Texas Open.
I'm not gonna name drop the guy, but shame is one of the biggest teachers. And if you know who you are, you need to change your behavior, because that's one of the other things I was gonna get into is like Savage was saying, for calling yourself Savage, you are a very civilized and honorable man. You should absolutely give everybody. It's like the respect. Everyone's like, respect isn't given, it's earned. No, basic respect is absolutely given. Everyone deserves like base respect. Can you lose respect? Absolutely. Is it a hard road to get your respect back? For sure. But basic human dignity and respect, that's a freebie. And that's the way that I treat gatekeeping. It's like anyone and everybody is allowed at my table, but if you give me a solid reason to, I'm going to give you one chance, and that's it. After that, you're gone. But I will always offer the road to redemption, because I feel like that's an important part for anybody's overall character arc.
Yeah.
So if that person were to feel enough shame to come forward, apologize, make a sincere attempt at changing their behavior, by all means, you should be welcome back. However, whether you get welcome back the second time because you decided that you didn't want to change your behavior, I guess that's up to whoever's running the store or the table. the cool Dungeness basement that everyone has a good time drinking beer and eating pizza at.
Yeah, it's the door is always open if only a crack. It's like, and again, that's why I say
Open the gates. Okay,
uh,
open the gates a little.
that's why I say gatekeeping as a term just kind of sucks, and I see why people say I hate gatekeepers. Yeah, I see why you say that. That's why I would much rather, and forgive me if I'm presumptuous here, but I think it's time to start spreading the word policing, and I mean that in the military sense of like police up this area, keep it clean. Like, okay, good.
Maintain.
We've let everybody in. Now this one guy keeps picking fights, starting shit, blah blah blah. Okay, fine. Pull him aside. If he's going to keep it up, great. We just don't game. That's not prejudicial. That's not presumptuous. He's had chances. He's had a warning, whatever it is, and that's all there is to it. It's people enjoying their game and moving on when somebody's clearly there to detract. And if he goes, yeah, you're right. If he appraises his own behavior and goes, cool, I don't want to do that. I want a game. I'm sorry about that. Tones it down, dude. Welcome back. Here's
Welcome
Cheetos.
back. And where's the Mountain Dew?
Am I getting drunk in the tavern?
There's nothing there. What are you casting magic missile at?
I'm casting at the darkness.
Toxic gamer behavior trait. Somebody that should be. Well, actually, I have gray eyes now. I decided. Never mind. So, yeah. So things that you can self-reflect on, self-meditate on to realize when maybe you're being a bad nerd is immediate and prejudiced gatekeeping, then the not offering a path to redemption / changing your behavior, and then 3, lack of self-awareness. If you're that guy who everyone is kind of reticent to get a game in with, or if you're that one guy that starts looking around and you're like, man, where are all the players at? And you realize that like the community leader who's organizing all the games, it's like, oh, hey, Zorkborg. I'm using Zorkborg because I don't want to call any Johns out. I don't want to be like, oh, hey, John. You know what I mean? I doubt anyone's name is Zorkborg. And if you are a Zorkborg listening to this podcast, you probably deserve it. Talk to your parents. But if the community leader is looking at you and it's just like, hey, bud, so I guess it's just you and me today. It's time to self-reflect and say, ooh, is it me? Am I the drama? Am I the bad guy? And then maybe make some changes.
Yep.
Now, to end this on a positive note, things to know about being a good nerd, not just a proficient nerd. But, what does that mean? Where it's like, I've decided to quit smoking for good. Oh, dude, that's good. That's great. Now I smoke for evil.
Oh, God.
So, it's like, being a good nerd is like, do people want to gravitate to you? Are people all of a sudden like, oh man, Savage is playing Warcaster, I want to play Warcaster? Or are people saying like, man, Jeremy watches Star Trek Picard season 3, maybe I should watch Star Trek Picard season 3? And then their lives
totally watch Star Trek Picard season 3.
and then their lives are actually benefited from that in a positive way. I think that's a first sign of you being a good nerd.
Yeah, again, it's that's kind of where the intention comes in. Yeah, it's like what's your purpose in doing this?
And then what's another sign of being a good nerd?
What do you mean?
I don't know, because like
we're all good nerds. We should know we're all good nerds, right?
Well, Thanos, I'm sure thought he was a good nerd.
I'm evil. Come on.
Thanos was evil. This whole crowd of Thanos was right. You're wrong. That's not a hot take.
Yeah, no, Thanos was definitely not right.
That was a bad man. You are a very bad man.
If you want to embrace the pillars of being a good nerd, I believe the things that you need to have in your life. No, I'm just kidding. I again, and I've said this a couple times on many different subjects. It's the purpose. It's your intention, and it shows out in your actions. It's, if you actually want to help someone, you're not literally going to go around sabotaging them. If you want to encourage people, you're going to be uplifting. If you want to educate people, you're going to do it in a way that they can benefit from it, not from a way that makes them feel like the dumbest kid in the room.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think there's a way of telling, and sometimes you just know, and if you know a good nerd in your life, if you know somebody who's like a positive pillar of your community who exemplifies some of the pillars that we've talked about here today, a little bit of gratitude goes a really long way. Thank your DM. Always thank your DM. Even if they TPK, thank your DM.
Yeah, that, as far as I'm concerned, that's just good manners, because this guy is creating the story and creating the environment and leading you guys along. And B, isn't right there with you like, okay, cool, I've got a character, blah, blah, blah. Like some do, I know, but they're very much taking a backseat so you have a good time.
Oh, I'm just gonna tack that right on to being a bad nerd. If you DM PC more than just being like a character advisor, but if you like hardcore DM PC, you might need to reflect.
Ooh,
That's a
yeah,
hot take. That's a hot take.
that
I
is a
don't
hot
think
take.
it's that hot. I don't think it's that hot. And that's being somebody who up until like very recently was DM purgatory DM. There was a point where I got a little salty about being a DM, and then I just really embraced it hardcore because I was like, I get to play as much, if not more than the players. So I need to make sure that I'm doing the best I can to run a good game. So that way the players' only concern is whether or not they're specifically having a good time. Because if the players are focused on like um they're having a good time, and each one of them is kind of like, I don't know, I don't necessarily want to say individually, there's a little bit of camaraderie where you might have to actively do that, but as a DM, I just need to like unbiased referee this game to the best of my ability, and I think the players will kind of take care of themselves. I'm having a good time just because I'm getting to play, and I'm one of those voice actor DMs because that's what makes me happy, and I think I'm relatively good at it.
If you want to be a voice acting DM, please message me for lessons.
Well, I think Jeremy will tell you it was a month ago. I was trying to do the voice of a chef, but I couldn't decide if he was Italian or French.
French, yeah.
So it was both. He was both, and I'm like, it's Chalt. He could be both. I don't care.
I can't even. I'm normally good with accents. I can't even think of blending the two of those and still being able to get out a coherent sentence. I could try it. I'm going to sound like Ozzy after a fifth.
Don't we all? Well, except for Jeremy. Jeremy can put it away.
I used to be really good at voices, but not anymore. I done destroyed my voice. Probably drinking too much.
You don't even have to do voices. Like there's a couple of really good ways for you just narrating, and I think being confident in your words will really send that message just as much as doing silly voices. But I like outwardly comedic games. I like it to be somewhere between I don't know, like Monty Python and I don't know why, but Lollipop Chainsaw just popped up in my head.
I don't know what Lollipop Chainsaw is.
Lollipop Chainsaw was a zombie. It was a third person action zombie killer game where you played a cheerleader with a chainsaw, and she was carrying around in a handbag the decapitated head of her boyfriend.
Crazy.
She went. What was it? She went to like John Romero's high school or whatever. She was like the Knights of Romero cheerleader or whatever.
I kind of remember that getting turned into a video game at some point.
I don't think it was anything but a video game. Anyway, I like it. I like it when it's gonzo funny because I don't know if I've ever um succinctly tried to run like a serious campaign. It's always been funny. I think it's something that I excel in, and it engages my players. So, have you guys ever
Ah,
run a serious D&D campaign?
my first couple D&D campaigns were super serious. I think all the way up until the point where I kind of had a TPK
Mm.
and quit the campaign. Like I I had invited a gamer who was a total rules lawyer and he turned me off from running the game, so I TPK'd them all, which
Oh,
was a dick move.
that's a bad nerd.
Ah,
No, wait, hold on. I need to say this. TPKing, doing a TPK is not indicative of a bad nerd. Doing a TPK because of somebody else in the group is pissing you off, that might be a bad nerd.
well, look, we weren't going to be a group for very long. We were on a deployment and I didn't have a bunch of friends that was pretty new to the unit, and I allowed one of my players to bring someone into the game that I didn't vet, and he was a rules lawyer, and I instead of putting my foot down and saying no, I'm the DM, and that's not going to happen. I let him do stuff that ruined the campaign, and so I TPK'd them all, which I barely pulled it off actually because of the stupid rule that I let him break. uh, well, it wasn't a broken rule. He technically played by the rules. Um, um,
And that's the
they,
last time Jeremy ever bothered with anyone who liked lawful good.
well, no, it wasn't even lawful good. I think he was playing a chaotic neutral character. He was a ranger, and he had the animal handling ability, and I let him tame and befriend a winter wolf instead of they were supposed to kill it, but
Hmm.
it was chained up, so they didn't have to fight it. It didn't. What I should have done is I should have let the chain break so the winter wolf was off of the chain and then it could attack them. But I didn't, and I let him tame it, and then he used the winter wolf, which is a large creature. And I guess it was just my oblivion. I overlooked the fact that it was a large creature. And in 3 and third edition and 3.5 edition, a large creature could grapple a one class higher creature still and have a chance of getting it prone.
Hmm.
And so this winter wolf grappled a white dragon and proned it, and they coup de grace it. And so at like level 5, they coup de grace a freaking stupid white dragon, which was like the main plot point of the whole quest was to like level up enough that they could actually kill this thing and find its lair. Find its lair, then kill it in its lair. So now there was no way to find the damn lair because they killed the dragon. It was just supposed to be like a fleeting encounter, so they knew the dragon was in the area. Which just derailed it. So they ended up going into this like swamp area where they got attacked by 7 hydras and that killed them.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, I was pretty upset. I'm not gonna say I was pretty petty. I was pretty upset. And so then we re-rolled characters and my the world we were playing in, I don't allow gnomes in my world. Just kind of like we talked about, I don't allow half
Racist.
races in my world. So like it just I don't like gnomes. They don't fit lore-wise into my world.
You've had underwear go missing too many times, haven't you, Jeremy?
So
No, it
anyways,
was his pajamas. Those pajamas got stolen.
so I promised them I wouldn't play it in my world. It was going to be a Norwegian style campaign. They would all be like in a Viking type world, and I was assuming they were all going to play humans. Every single player played a gnome. And from that point on, pretty much
Oh.
every game I've ever played has had a bit of humor in it because it was so hilariously funny. They all played gnomes and they knew I hated gnomes.
I don't think I've ever had a fully unhinged campaign or session, but anytime, anywhere, there's always been humor. There's always been moments you die laughing and you knew the DM kind of made it that way.
Oh, very good. I think so. This last IKRPG thing that I tried to do, I kind of wanted it to be serious. It was the first time I ever wanted to do it, but then I ended up playing with some of the funniest people I've ever met, and I knew I should have just leaned really hard into it. But I wanted to do the seven fingers of the Iron Kingdoms. You know, the island
Oh
archipelago
yeah,
with all
yeah,
the
the
giant things.
iron over there with Covis.
Yeah, and so I wanted to do like a kind of semi Game of Thronesy pirate takeover where it was the pirates finally had enough of these super thin treaties and peace treaties, and then the players were going to be like mercenarying out for one of the kings and maybe trying to double cross and then triple cross and then end up saying screw it, we're gonna take it all for ourselves. um and like I said, you know, the players that I had, they were some of the wittiest people, and the greatest part was they'd never played before. I was playing with an entire table that had never played before. I accepted two people that had played before, and they melded it right in. And the only reason why we stopped playing was because um, I bit off a little bit more than I could chew, and the game fell apart because I was in between jobs, and I was kind of ashamed of that. Anyway, I long for the days of having like, and Jeremy plays in my online games on Sundays, but I do long for the days where I can have an in-person group at my table.
Oh yeah, I don't love the whole digital, you know, online only. I much prefer playing with people. Beer
I
and
would
pretzels.
love to find a group out here to play with, but I'm in the area where I don't want to do that.
It works. Online play works really well if you've got great chemistry. Like, so Jeremy and Ray and I, we play on Sundays,
Mhm.
and Bruski, if you want to play, you just let us know. It is kind of awkward time. It's like early evening on Sundays.
It's
Yeah.
somewhere between 6:30 and 7:30, and we run till about 9 p.m. and that's West Coast time.
I mean, you guys know my schedule. Sometimes I probably can do that. I'd be jumping in out of nowhere. So
Okay.
Well, I think I'm gonna run the next one, and that's fine. I could totally use you as a guy that would be a like an NPC when you're not there.
got it.
Hey, the mysterious stranger. Oh
Oh
boy,
look,
here I
it's
go, kill it again.
oh
You'll
look,
be
it's Glorfindel, whatever, you know.
you'd be dungeon master.
Anyway, we're probably gonna ramble on here. So any finishing
Yeah, we're
thoughts? Do
we're
we want
way
to talk
over
about
an hour and a half.
news?
I don't even know at this point. I mean, we've kind of beaten around every possible nuance of this whole thing, but I want to circle back and I just want to say, like, again, we're not, the point of this was not to bash or belittle anybody or tell you like this is how nerddom is, this is how we see it, this is kind of how we view it. You
No,
know,
if
we
anything, I think we were like super welcoming. Like I said, there are no immediate qualifiers. If you want to call yourself a nerd, you should do so.
Hold on,
At
there's one qualifier. Your name can't be Paddy.
mother fudgesicles. but but your name can be Petty Patty. I'm coming for you.
Jeremy, if you don't end up short sheeted, your underwear goes missing.
I'm gonna steal your
Possibly
pajamas.
possibly get some liquid heat poured right in your jockstrap. Hey man, I don't know.
Good thing none of those things exist in my life.
Oh boy. Yet.
But so I think the major takeaways are recognize if and when you're being a bad nerd. Always ask for the path of redemption. Always offer a path for redemption, and then just be welcoming, but also be willing to draw your line in the sand. I would never blame anybody who says, "Man, for the health of my table, I'm sorry you can't be here." Because I think being a good steward of especially of your local hobby, you know, how it's treated. That's good nerd. That's good nerd stuff.
And we're not talking Steward of Gondor style. Please don't set your son on fire.
Don't send Pinkertons to anyone's neighborhood.
Oh, they're
Um,
coming. They're coming right to your house tomorrow.
Wizards of the Coast. My door is locked among many other things, and your Pinkertons will be sent away.
Yeah, Watsy, enough with the Booker DeWitt treatment, please.
Straight up, man. That's crazy.
They could
But
have
anyway,
played it two different ways. I think they did it the hard way, where they could have done it the easy way, where like what GW did, where their model got spoiled. They're like, oh well, here's 10th edition. You guys all figured it out.
Gosh, you think we actually like GW with how much we've been praising them?
I don't mind GW. There's some things they do wrong and there's some things they do good. I still like some of the games, and I'm sure I'll probably have a few of their games on my channel just because they'll get views. I don't, not that I care about views much, but I do enjoy playing like Warcry, Shadow War Armageddon, Necromunda. I'll probably play older editions of 40K. Like I've still loved 4th and 5th edition 40K. As long as
Yeah.
I can tell a good narrative story with the game, and it's the story I want to tell currently, yeah, I will play that game.
It's kind of like I said previously, there is no perfect game nor game manufacturer, except maybe Paddy, but
Look for mutants on Big Geek Emporium. Thank you very much.
indeed. But I still love the lore. I still love a lot of my models. I have a lot of good memories there. I'm sure I'll gravitate to and from it. Yes, I'm getting into other things. I'm getting into Warcaster. I'm
Infinity.
definitely, I have my eye on Infinity. I've ordered the bunny bot. Ugh. But yeah, I'm
Gonna have to
probably
come up to Washington, Eastern Idaho, and get some games in with us sometime.
let me
Eastern,
let
Western.
me learn to
Western.
play and give me a few months. But yeah, I'm sure I'll get up there.
Jeremy doesn't learn to play. He skims the rule book and makes it up as he goes.
It's exactly the best way to play any game.
Yeah, so I need to roll a 10 on a 6-sided dice. I did it. Good for you.
There
Huh?
when Age of Sigmar first came out, there was a rule for the Skaven called the Dreaded 13. And it said if you rolled a natural 13 on 2 dice, you would automatically win the game. And the guy I worked with he played Skaven, and he'd always roll a D12 and a D6, and he'd try to get that 13. He's like, it doesn't say it has to be 2D6. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. Go ahead and try to roll for that 13. He never
That's
ever got it. Never once.
That's kind of fair. It's what is it? JP got rockets. One of the things that I really liked about what he had said about mutants. And what's funny is I didn't really intend it, but he was like, man, one of the things I really like about mutants is it's concise, it's to the point, and when Paddy writes rules, he doesn't sound like a frustrated writer. And when I heard that, I was like, I don't know if that ever really crossed my mind because I knew the format at which I was working with. I didn't have a lot of room to write superfluously. So I think about uh, and not as a dig to Privateer Press because I loved reading the book, but every rule had a paragraph that described how the rule would be simulated in real life. And so it took what very well could be a 5-page rules document all the way out to 76 pages worth of rules. And I was just like, yeah, I'd like to say that I did that intentionally. I did it intentionally because I knew how much space I had to work with. But if Mutants was a full-size book, I can't say that that's how it would have turned out.
I mean, yeah, like the thing I like best is the fluff was the fluff, and you had a little teensy weensy bit of fluff in the rules, but otherwise kept it fully and totally separate. If you're reading the rules, you're learning how to play the game. If you're reading the fluff, you're getting some background.
Yeah. And now I think it's just that ever since he said that, I think it's a design philosophy that I've just accepted. And I'm just going to push my way forward that way in the future. And again, admittedly, the medium that I work in, the zine printable at home format, it lends itself well to that way. So cutting that bacon fat.
Bacon.
Never cut the bacon fat. Cutting the other fats, the saturated fats.
Now we just got to get evokers done, Pat.
Ooh, yeah, I have evokers, arcanists, die 10. I have
I thought you had like the die 10 light was done though, right?
Yeah, but I hate it. No, so as I started writing die 10 core, this is a joke that I make on Twitter often. it's pretty stupid. But I was like, I decided that I'm gonna take conversation, bluff, intimidate. I'm going to take all that out as a skill for my game. And someone's like, well, why do you do that? Because it requires 0 skill to lie to NPCs. And if you know, you know.
Proof.
So it's actually, and Jeremy, you could tell me, when we were playing the Boy from Esteos, when you guys were running around the palace, I don't think I had you guys roll to lie to anybody in the palace.
I think you made me roll one time because this was probably super unbelievable what I was trying to pull off. I think it was when we went to the kitchen. And I was like, oh yeah, I need to stop and look at this door real quick to see how I can block this freaking door in. Then we got into the kitchen and the chef's like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be in here. So I think that might have been the only one place. And then we ended up knocking that dude out anyways. We didn't even like, just knock him out.
So yeah, as I was writing Die 10 Core, I was like, man, skills? No, we don't need skills. Attributes. Test the attributes. Skills.
There's a lot of games out there that don't have skills. Savage Worlds doesn't use skills, I don't believe. I don't think Rifts use skills.
I've never played either of those games.
Well, you gotta get out there and try out some other RPGs besides what Wizards puts out, buddy.
Oh, that's rough. You know that's not true. I haven't played a Wizards game since El Paso, and before then, I wasn't even playing 5e. I was playing Gamma World 7th edition.
That's a Wizards Spawn game though.
Yeah, but that came out
old school classics, Wizard Spawn games. Anything that spawned off of Wizards, even that 2D6 game by
no.
Privateer Press.
Don't
It spawned. It has its roots are grown. Its roots are grown from Wizards. Say you can hate it all you want,
dude. You can, but if that's the mentality that you have, TSR Hobbies was bought by Wizards, and anybody who ever played Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and then said, man, that Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is pretty cool, but what if I did my own thing? Then you could be like, oh, it's everything is just Dungeons and Dragons with extra or less steps.
Traveler came out before. It's its own thing. It came out in conjunction, but it's definitely its own thing. Traveler's nowhere near. But it is skills heavy. It's a skill game. It's skill based. Everything's skills in that game.
Absolutely.
You can freaking die during character creation.
Yeah, I don't. So dying during character creation is one, like dying during like the funnel, right? Because DCC does funnel hardcore.
Like the first 40 years of your life can be played in that game without even playing the game. Because you do all these careers before you become a traveler.
Anyway, my name's Paddy with Paddy's Parlor Games.
Are you trying to end this podcast, Pat? Is that what you're getting at?
Dude, I'm just trying to.
I think he's trying to survive it.
I think we're getting a little off topic.
We are absolutely getting
way off topic.
This has been the Bruski Comedy Hour with Paddy and Jeremy. We hope we've made you laugh, cry, and fudge your undies.
No, don't fudge your undies, please.
All right, well,
you got anything new working?
Dude, I have a backlog of things that I need to finish. I still want to do my video for any and all content creators because I'm definitely heated on the subject. I've got my gamer tiles. I've got battle mats. I've got no shortage of things to do. I just need to finish something for God's sake.
Did you post anything up about your tiles this week? I didn't catch anything.
No, I totally redid my concept for scatter and I didn't want to use what I already had. So I want to like make new shit. So I had to get the resin, get the powder, get the blah. Like I've got a lot of stuff to do.
I did catch your little flip notebook thing. That was kind of cool. Though I didn't understand everything that was drawn on it.
I wasn't trying to give away the whole thing, but that was literally just like, I kind of did that to showcase kind of the invisible monster that, Paddy and I had gone into previously. Like you're worried about starting a campaign or something. You don't know how to frame it or put it down. Like literally I just bought a notebook and just like, oh, idea, boom. Oh, I thought about this, post it, boom.
Yeah, slay the nothing beast. And sometimes it's as easy as giving it a name.
Yep. And so that's all I did. Those were super crude. They were really quick. They were really fast. Somebody had actually said like, I have no idea how to lay out concepts for terrain. I was like, bro, it's not architecture.
I actually started painting some terrain today, mostly scatter terrain,
Oh yeah.
but start small, right? And then me and my brother Ray were talking about dungeon and lasers, and so tomorrow my goal is it's supposed to be pretty warm here, like in the 90s is what I'm hearing. So I'm gonna bring out my dungeon and lasers sci-fi tiles, and I'm gonna prime them all black and maybe get the dusting of white on them so I can start doing some underbrushing and stuff and get those things done because I'm gonna need them for the Zombicide campaign I want to run up.
Game on.
And then I found a new Kickstarter today, which man, this Kickstarter might save me a bunch of money because it is it looks like it's being put out by That Evil One, and it's called Heck Ghost. And from the just looking at the preview art, it is totally the Killzone Helgens. And I was about to pay someone like $800 to sculpt like 5 different sculpts of Helgen type models.
Killzone Helgens. Yeah, you've been talking about that for a really long time.
I had, and I
Did you
finally
put a
found a
Kickstarter?
sculptor, and he was going to do it for me, but he wanted like $180 per sculpt, and he wanted to like sculpt them each guy individually, not have them like modular. And
Yeah,
I was
I
like,
remember
I
you
wanted the
saying that.
modularity in them, and he was like, that's way harder.
Modular things don't look good, and
Well, and he wanted way more money per
Mhm.
like guy for modularity. But this Kickstarter that's going to launch, and it looks like he's going to launch tonight or tomorrow morning.
What's it
From
called?
It's called Heck Ghost, like HECK dash GHOSTS. By That Evil One. He's put out some other Kickstarters before I've done in the past. Like he's probably going to be, these are going to be pretty analog to the Imperial Guard for 40K, just done up in the style of the Helgens from the video game that Killzone. Uh, it's gonna be awesome because I kind of ported that world into my sci-fi universe. It's one of the worlds in my the quadrant that I'm running my campaign in. So if I can get these guys and print them up, that'd be really cool. I'll have an awesome security force for that planet for when I have missions and adventures on that world.
Cool.
Yeah, super excited about that.
Cool. Yeah.
Paddy, what about you?
So you were on my live stream on Rumble. So I've got a Rumble channel now, and I'm trying to make content for that. You can find me Paddy's Parlor Games, and hopefully I'll be live streaming this Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. If I can get it set back up again. Admittedly, it's a little bit different than just hitting, live on Facebook Live, but I'll be doing that. I'm continuing to tapping away at the Skeeveteer is what I'm calling it. Skeeveteer issue 1, and that'll be my Chult zine by Avenger Satanis's Chult universe.
Mhm.
I'm working on animal taming rules for that. Working on an adventure scenario called The Marshes of Joffre, and Jeremy and Ray are actually helping me write up some stuff for that.
Are you telling me I'm going to be able to tame a sandworm?
Is DM's discretion. There'll be an editor's note that says not
Nope.
everything is
I need to be able to tame a sandworm and ride it like Paul. Muad'Dib.
That's right. We are, oh my god. But so I've got that going, and then like Jeremy brought up with evokers. Man, that's far off. Arcanist is coming along. As soon as I finish the Skeeveteer, I'm gonna work on Arcanist, which is my heartbreaker for War Machine.
War Machine.
Mm-hmm. And then the other ways that you could support the Paddy's Parlor, we've got Paddy's Parlor on Subscribestar, and then I've got my books on biggeekemporium.com. They're at pay what you want, so you can get them for free. Leave me a review. I want to get more reviews on Big Geek Emporium. That's important for building that website, and I believe in that project. And then, like I said, my books are pay what you want. So if you think that they're worth something, you could drop me 50 cents, $1, $100. You don't have to do that. They're silly books.
$1,000.
1 million, pinky up. And then if you want to grab my book for free, and then maybe you want to drink some tea or some coffee, I am a coffee brand coffee affiliate, And if you use my code Parlor5, capital PARLOR5, you get 5% off, and that 5% goes to me.
Well, we don't want you to get no 5%. It better go to
Well,
me.
I can share that with Savage and War God, so that's worth the price of admission. If you like what we do here, you could do those things, and that some of those funds are going to be shared amongst the three of us to make this podcast more fun. And Savage, you hit 200 followers on Twitter, and I believe you're going to be doing a drawing tomorrow.
I think he's over 200 now. I was just looking at his profile.
I don't know what the heck,
doing the
but
drawing today.
Well, I was gonna, and nobody has commented on that thing, so I kind of want to go, hey
Wait.
guys, and redo it.
You're at 219 right now, and I don't see the post about followers.
It's probably several ago, but I mean, yeah, I picked up out of nowhere. I don't know what the hell. I was not particularly trying on Twitter.
It's obviously from linking all my stuff in.
So yeah, I mean, there's options. If the subscribe star, if you've got everything that you want and you have the means to give, that's there. If you want to just buy coffee, like
here it is,
the Mother's Day gift box. Again, if you use my code, I get a little bit of kickback. You buy games, and I plan on sharing that wealth the best I can. Of course, if you buy my book, The Boy from Tejas, the money that you buy that book with goes directly to an organization called Gays Against Groomers for the most justice.
Did you say Gays Against Groomers?
Oh, yeah. I won't talk about that here, but if anybody ever wants to contact me and ask me questions about those, you can find me at Twitter at Patio Cakes.
You heard it here, folks. So
also, as a not coffee drinker, the coffee brand coffee teas are super good. I had some last time I visited Paddy, and I'm a tea drinker, and that stuff was excellent.
Yeah, the oolong T005 and the lavender chamomile T004. Oh man, I got those for my wife for her birthday, and there was the parlor was of a different type when I got those for her. So if you want to win brownie points with your loved ones, get them some tea.
Nothing like a good old tea bagging.
Oh yeah.
Couldn't resist. I'm too much of a Master Chief fan. All right. Well, we are definitely getting off topic here. So,
I'm getting off all right.
Patrick.
Oh yeah, got him.
The later it gets, the more childlike we become. All right.
I love you guys.
Lay off that vodka, Patrick. You're acting like a high schooler.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay. So this is like where we end the regular broadcast. We go to the members only, right?
This just in, I'll be starting a Patreon. If you really want to hear the crazy shit we get up to, you're going to have to get behind that paywall.
Do it. Here, like I'm cracking open a cold one. Oh, how'd you like that?
No, I am still not crossing a paywall. Everything I do is still free.
Yeah.
All right.
So, that's why you're the best among us.
Well, I'm not going to agree with that. I'm just doing my thing. All right. Well, guys, it's been fun. I'm glad we had this discussion and tackled all the issues we did. I have no idea what we're going to do for the next podcast. Maybe that's going to be our inspiration. What do we do to motivate, inspire, drown out the noise? What do we play in the background as we paint, build, and swear? I don't know. That might be our next thing. Maybe not. You're just going to have to stay tuned and check back with us. Check out Paddy and Jeremy. Socials have been linked several times. I'll probably do it again. And I guess we'll see you on the next one.
Good night, everybody.